Why has transphobic propaganda in particular been such an effective tactic for the American right? That's something I've been asking myself a lot recently. And when I pose that question to other people, I get this sort of generalized sense of like, oh, well, they're just scapegoating a vulnerable minority group in order to distract from wealth inequality, healthcare, the plundering of the American state, um, all of that. And that's true, but that's just a general understanding of like trans people are being used as a scapegoat. But my question, and the question I think we have to be able to answer if we're going to be able to address it, is why do trans people make an effective scapegoat? Why trans people over other groups? And I do want to note now that, of course, we're not the only group being attacked. The undocumented population here in my city of LA is suffering very vicious and violent, devastatingly violent attacks by the American state right now. So it's not just trans people, but I am a trans woman. And so transphobic propaganda is what I've spent the most time thinking about and what I feel qualified to talk about. Um, my name is Sarah. I'm a comedian, trans woman, and philosophy grad student. And most of my work, both on stage and in my own in my own work in philosophy, has to do with trying to understand the underpinnings of transphobia. What is it about trans people that make it so effective for the right wing to attack us? What is it that cis people struggle with? What philosophical and psychological discomfort do trans people pose to cis people that it makes it so easy for fascists to target us as propaganda? Um, and I want to lay out my basic theory here. This is early stages, I'm still developing it, but this is the general outline of where I'm thinking because um, I don't want to just be thinking about this stuff on my own, right? I think philosophy is a public pursuit. Philosophy is inherently open source. Ideas are open source. And I also think that right now, understanding transphobia as best we can from as many angles as we can is a vital part of community self-defense for, the trans community and for all communities, because I think that all of these mechanisms are connected, but I'm going to be specifically describing my ideas with reference to trans people because again, like that's the community I feel comfortable speaking for to some degree, or speaking about. um, I'm going to lay out my understanding right now, my theory of loosely how this works. And I'm still in the early stages. This isn't like a rigorously developed philosophy, but this is my working theory. And I'm putting it out there because I believe that philosophy is open source. I believe that these are ideas that I want to talk to people about, and I want to hear other people's thoughts about, and I want other people to take them and run with them in any direction they want to. My my whole approach to this starts from this. I'm an existential nihilist, right? And so it starts with sort of the death of God, the crumbling of society, all that stuff that Jordan Peterson talks about, really, right? We've lost these cultural narratives that provide meaning and structure to our lives. It's the death of truth, this postmodern boogeyman the right wing is talking about. It's the fact that they invoke it so much that, to me, gives me some confidence that this is relevant. Um, because being a human is scary. Being a human is to be a tiny, vulnerable creature who's smart enough to understand our own vulnerability, smart enough to recognize some patterns and figure a lot of stuff out, but not to understand everything, right? And so the more we learn, the more we understand just how vulnerable we are, the more we understand just how little we understand. And that freaks people out. And people are going to retreat in one of a few directions. Sometimes people will just say, fuck it, this is a video game that doesn't matter. Everyone else is an NPC, and I'm basically playing Roller Coaster Tycoon, and my job is to have as much fun as I can blowing shit up and ruining lives because they aren't real. I'm the only one who's real. This is your Elon Musk, Silicon Valley, and I think in probably a lot of politicians' sort of outlook. This is like the elites of capitalism who are playing a game with the rest of us. And in a way, though, that they recognize is sort of, I think, like it's a ethical. It's not an ethic to it. It's just what they're doing. They're playing a game, and all that matters is their own hedonistic joy. Then you have people who retreat into a dogmatism of some kind. You have people becoming Christian fundamentalists. You have people joining cults and new age groups, spiritualities, like people looking to plug their ears and not pay attention to the fact that shit doesn't make sense by finding systems that purport to make it make sense. And this might get me canceled in my own queer community out here in California, but the amount of people who have, for example, turned to astrology to make sense of the world. Why are things going bad for me right now? Mercury is in retrograde. Why is this person being cruel to me? Or why did that relationship fall apart? There is Scorpio, right? It gives us explanatory mechanisms by which we can tell ourselves that things make sense, that we can find an explanation, and we don't have to confront the fact that, like, sometimes stuff is random and stuff is painful, and we are always vulnerable to that. Because when things are random, then we can never really feel safe, right? It's only when we feel like we understand all the patterns and all the laws of the universe that we can really allow ourselves to feel comfortably safe and prepared to handle the potential suffering that those laws generate. If it's random and unknowable or beyond the ability of humans to know, then we can never have that comfort. And then, like, the third reaction to the dissolution of systems of meaning is the existential rebellion, the leap of faith in oneself and in one's fellow humans to choose to care anyway, to embrace nihilism and then say, but I'm going to care about things anyway. Even if they don't matter outside of me or outside of us, they matter to me, and I'm okay with that. I accept that that's enough for me. And what it doesn't give you is that satisfying comfort of things making sense. In fact, it does the opposite. Once you abandon all of the categories and essences, laws and systems that you had previously used to make sense of yourself and the world around you and the people around you, all of a sudden you're left having to confront your radical freedom to make new choices for yourself. Who can I be? Who do I want to be? Who do I think is good to be, knowing that there's nothing out there that can tell me what's right or wrong, and I have to pick for myself what I believe. And that is the position that I ascribe to personally. I also think it's hard. It takes a lot of work and it's not comfortable. And so a lot of people don't like it. A relative of that middle category of the dogmatism that's less spiritual is just the creation of social games in general. And I think this is just how human beings work. We create social games to cordon off the whole sort of ambiguity of the universe around us, to cordon off the limitlessness of our own freedom and therefore our own responsibility for our own lives. And we create systems of rules and roles in which our agency is limited and clearly directed. We create systems of value, point systems, in which case what I care about and what I pursue are made more obvious and clear to me. And you can think about this like literally all the way down to a game. You have Scrabble. There are rules, there are points, there are ways you can play tiles. And there, we don't have to think about anything else. This is what matters right now, right? So that layout, that philosophical layout of games I'm getting from C.T. Nguyen, he's a philosopher. And to me, gender, social gender, man and woman in America and beyond, is one big social game we play as part of that same kind of ritual, right? Like, if I can narrow myself down into one of two kinds of people, then that cuts my agency down in half. And agency is what's scary. Freedom is scary. The responsibility that comes with freedom is scary. The decision paralysis is scary. So right off the bat, I'm one of two kinds of people. That cuts my options in half. I can't wear dresses because I'm a boy, for instance. Or I don't have the moral obligation of being a caretaker because I'm a boy. And it goes both ways. It's not just this isn't a sexist thing. Women benefit from this too. There's also this value system. It's amorphous, but there is a point system. Like the only reason the manosphere, the whole basis of the manosphere is that people, guys, will get up there and say, here is how you do better at being a man. Here is how you get more man points, right? Like, I am more manly than you. And you could see it in the way we talk about it. This isn't new shit. This is people when I was growing up saying, I'm revoking your man card or I'm taking away man points, right? It's always, we've always known it was a game system and we've always treated it that way, in my opinion. But a lot of people suffer on account of the gender game system. A lot of people who don't live up to the norms of masculinity and femininity are bullied for that, for instance. They are made to feel less than because of their inability to live up to those things. People put themselves through immense amounts of pain and turmoil in order to better match the roles in the gendered system that they've been assigned. The amount of time that men put in at the gym, for instance, and that can be mixed. They might love it, but they might also just be trying to look a certain way. The amount of effort that men put into denying themselves certain kinds of behaviors and pleasures because it wouldn't be befitting their social role. Even people who succeed within the role, even people who excel at it, also suffer a lot from it. And then there's a lot of joy that comes from it too when you are good at it, or when it allows you, in the case of men, to feel superior to women, for instance. But it is this all-pervasive rule system that allows people to more easily make choices and allows people to more easily understand how they fit in to the people around them, both in the hierarchy and in terms of social behavior. Like, again, it is a comforting, soothing game system. What a trans person does is say, that game system that comforts you and soothes you and that is also the source of a bunch of your suffering is actually not real. It's not necessary. Trans people aren't saying you can't play that game, but what we are forcing you to do is confront the fact that it is a game. And that makes people really uncomfortable, right? Because for a lot of people who can't take that leap of like faith and instability into the existential rebellion, the idea that my source of comfort and meaning or the cause of my suffering is this arbitrary game system undercuts its ability to provide that comfort and meaning. And it also makes that suffering, arbitrary, makes that suffering unnecessary to have happened. When before, if the game system is unquestionably real and necessary, that suffering is a natural part of it. So I don't have to feel so bad about it. Trans people pose a direct challenge to this game system and other ones. But like, for now, we're being simple here. That makes cis people uncomfortable around them. That makes cis people want not to believe us. De facto, right wing or left wing, right? Like that doesn't necessarily have to do with politics. But when fascists then use that to attack, cis people, I think, are often already primed to want to accept any reason not to believe trans people are real, to believe we're monsters, to believe we're insane. Whatever it is, anything they can believe about us, that they don't have to do the reflection on their own selves, on their own freedoms, on their own agency, and on their own participation in a game system that they don't want to recognize as such. Trans people, by our very nature, force cis people to recognize their freedom in a way that makes them uncomfortable. Fascism, authoritarianism, ultimately, is the politic of denying your own freedoms. It's the politic of submission to an authority as a way of fleeing your own freedom and responsibility. And yeah, it's not a surprise there that those two are a perfect match. Once you prime people against trans people into that space of looking for reasons to abandon their freedom, maybe they're more susceptible to fascism. Maybe the people who are already more susceptible to fascism are then more likely to accept this transphobic propaganda. And just for a loose tie-in and how it might apply to other kinds of scapegoating or bias, I think what you see with undocumented immigrants is the exact same shit. It's not a gendered game system, it's the border game system. It's this idea that borders are real, that states are real. How much of our suffering happens at the hands of the state, right? How much of our ability to find purpose and meaning and like understanding of our own selves has to do with how we fit into the game of states and borders. What an undocumented migrant does as another human being just like you who walks across an unmarked piece of land uh, and joins a community like humans have been doing forever, literally forever. We are migratory animals. Um, what that person does is it forces you to either have to say this person is an inhumane monster who is a criminal who needs to get out of here, or this person is a human being just like me, and maybe borders and states are more of a fiction than I'm comfortable admitting they are. Anyway, these are my thoughts right now. I'd love to hear any of your thoughts and have you help me develop them. Thanks.